Good evening and welcome to our program. The Agency for Public Information is pleased to bring to you another informative package with the latest information on government's plans, programs, and policies. I am Shanna Daniel, and coming up on this presentation, if you're planning to apply for a student loan to pursue studies at a university overseas, then Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is reminding you that you need to first check the list of priority areas of study for this country. The API joins officials from the Ministry of Transport for an update on several projects under the North Windward Hurricane Thomas Rehabilitation Program. We hear about an upcoming symposium to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the SVG Botanical Gardens. And from the site of the largest capital project under construction here, we have the latest update on the Argyle International Airport. Stay right where you are. We'll have the details to these stories just after Newswatch with Keisha Woodley.
Welcome to Newswatch. Good evening. I am Keisha Woodley. Chairman of the shareholder government of LIAT, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, said that the government of St. Lucia is interested in coming on board as an equity partner of LIAT. This disclosure came at the press conference hosted by the Prime Minister last week. He confirmed that at the Friday, May 22nd meeting, the shareholder government reconfirmed all the decisions made at the February 13th meeting to accept the restructuring plans for LIAT.
The main shareholder governments, the four of them, were represented. Barbados was represented by its Prime Minister, Dominica by its Financial Secretary, Antigua and Barbuda by its Minister of Civil Aviation, Mr. Yearwood. St. Vincent and Grenadines was represented by its Prime Minister, who was in the chair. The mandate is to continue to work on those decisions. We're making progress on disposal of aircraft from the Dash 8s. As you get closer to the end, the last two would create a difficulty for us. And there's some natural attrition which is taking place in the labor force. But as we have the aircraft, the older aircraft sold off, we should, or the lease, or the lease is handed back, we'll have some spare money to help to deal with some of the severance. We just simply have to make the airline a more efficient operation, and at the same time one where we save costs, save expenditure.
Prime Minister Gonsalves said that the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, and LIAT are working together for LIAT's immediate financial requirements for growth and consolidation. In education, the National Student Loan Company is now accepting applications for the economically disadvantaged and regular student loan programs. Application forms can be collected from the Ministry of Education and the National Insurance Services Limited. Attention should be paid to the qualifying criteria for the economically disadvantaged student loan, which are appended to the application form. The following documents must be submitted with the applications: certified copies of your academic qualifications, acceptance letter from the accredited institution, details of cost of program, copy of identification or driver's license, national identification card or passport, Applications should be sent to Ms. Linda Jackson in care of National Student Loan Company Limited, Ministry of Education. The deadline for the submission of application is July 15th, 2015. Applicants are advised that priority will be given to courses that are within the approved study areas. Please note that persons awaiting acceptance letters are encouraged to submit applications within the designated period. Finally, on Newswatch, developmental assessments and monitoring tracking progress in the early childhood sector. This was the focus of a workshop held on Tuesday at the Methodist Church Hall. The workshop was spearheaded by the Ministries of Education and National Mobilization in conjunction with UNICEF. In her opening remarks, early childhood education specialist at UNICEF, Mrs. Shelley-Ann Harper, stated that UNICEF was very pleased to be associated with the workshop.
Basically, this workshop speaks about, number one, giving children the best start in life. And as Ms. Gilchrist said earlier, giving children that strong foundation. And we know if we had to go down the list, we would have a long list of the ingredients which is necessary to give children that best start. So for example, and we've heard them from all of our colleagues here, they need to have safe and protective environments in which they live, whether they're working, playing, they should be safe and protected. Children need attentive, caring, and nurturing caregivers, whether they're in their health clinic, they're at home with mommy and daddy, down the road by the neighbor, somewhere in the community, in their preschool. We should all be giving them the attention that they need. We should be nurturing their development and giving them that support.
Thank you for viewing Newswatch. Good evening. I am Keisha Woodley.
The following is a message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment.
I brought plums for break today.
Plums? Where's the salt?
At school we don't eat fruits with salt.
I don't think it is good. Look, some salt.
No, it's better without. Less salt, healthier life.
A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment.
Thank you for staying with us, and if you're just joining us, then welcome. This is the presentation from the Agency for Public Information. Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, has made a strong appeal to students applying for student loans to pursue university studies abroad to first check the list of priority areas of study for this country. Speaking at a news conference held on June 2nd, the Prime Minister outlined the mandate of the Student Loan Company, noting that students seeking to pursue studies outside of these priority areas will not be eligible to benefit from the government's economically disadvantaged student loan program. The Prime Minister, who is also Minister of Finance, has explained that the government will have to find $5 million for new and continuing students to fund the program for the upcoming academic year.
I had a meeting last week with the Student Loans Company. Remember, the Student Loans Company was formed after 2010, 2011. But before that, from 2002, 2003, we had the Student Loan Committee. So the Student Loan Company, less than $20 million, they would be owed. But the whole program is about $85 million because the Student Loan Committee was before that. That's the money which we have loaned students who are economically disadvantaged who's at university, Right now, as I talk, the government has here in St. Vincent doing with distance and also with open campus, and at University of the West Indies, and at other universities over 1,000 students. I'm not talking about those who are on their own, those in which we are involved. I gave those stats at when we did the launch of the project for UWI, for open campus, in which it didn't take me any time to agree. When the university brought the proposal to me for me to guarantee with the Caribbean Development Bank the loan of $6 million to open campus, to the university. Because that is what is knowledge. That is power. Knowledge. There's divine power, but the good Lord says that you have to help yourself. You got to develop your abilities, knowledge, and skill. That's why you're going to take us places. I just want to tell the students, I know I outlined, I try to think about all sorts of things. The Student Loan Committee told me that they were putting the deadline at the end of June for the applications. I told them they have to give a deadline up to the middle of July, even though it means a lot of rush. Because the university, and this is why you have to keep abreast, the University of the West Indies extended the deadline this year for students to be admitted to the 30th to the 31st of May. And the reason why they did that is because several other countries, particularly say Barbados, but other countries today, the nationals, not Trinidad, because they have a different system. The numbers have been declining for applications, so they give a longer period. Well, if the applications close on the 31st, and the Student Loans Committee can only accommodate you after you have gotten your acceptance, and you just give 1 month, it could be tight. So I said, no, you gotta give another 2 weeks. And no. So they have to tie it. If it's the normal closing date at the end of March, as how it used to be usual, the end of June is a piece of cake, because you will get the information from the university before. One of the things I want to say to the students when they're applying for the student loans, remember this. Where we can do, first of all, we're not lending you any money to go and do any preliminary year. So you have to have your A-levels to get direct entry. Or, in the case of an associate degree, where you're getting direct entry with it. So that's the first thing. Because we're spending all this money, we're spending $13 million out at the community college. I can't be spending that and then having to go and pay for you for an extra year to go to Barbados or wherever else to do a preliminary year. No, you do it here. Secondly, say in the Faculty of Social Sciences, all the courses except I think one particular area of speciality they don't do here for their first year, social sciences. But once we are doing the first year here at Open Campus, you have to do it here. Between Open Campus and the community college. Remember last year, there's a Vincentian student, because we write the exam for the social sciences at the Trinidad campus. A Vincentian student came first, above the resident students at St. Augustine, during the first year social sciences. You knew that? You didn't know that? Well, you see, there are plenty of things you don't know. But that's a fact. I spoke about it when I went to give out the $500 to the students out at the community college for those who were getting that money on the basis of their success in the exams. I want also to say to the students, check the priority list. It's on the website of the government. Check at the Chief Personnel Office, see what the priority list is. If you're going outside of that, you're not going to get the student loan. The save and accept in cases, if for instance you have somebody, for instance, psychology is not listed as a priority now. But if somebody had been working in some capacity, though they're not at the university, they've done some other kind of courses, or by experience they're dealing with, spend a few years doing some training, some work in say, the HIV area, or somewhere in one of the schools or something like that. They want to. Well, then there's a discretion on the committee in a case like that to make the recommendation to me to do the approval, because I have to sign as guarantor on the economically disadvantaged student in my capacity as Minister of Finance. So, look at the priority areas. The number of people, number of persons. Sociology is not a priority. So they will go and they want to do sociology, they go and they apply for sociology and law. Well, don't do that, because you're not going to get it, because you're trying to beat the system. You know, do the law, for which you will get the economically disadvantaged student loan. Not that sociology is not important, it's just that it is not a priority at this particular point in time, and you're reviewing the priorities. If a person is practicing as a journalist for quite some time, though journalism is not listed as a priority, though we have the 2 Glenn Jackson scholarships, but if a person has been practicing as a journalist, it is open to the committee to make the recommendation to me to say, well, listen, that person has been practicing. It's not a number of them, it's one of them or maybe 2 of them. They will give them consideration, and so on and so forth. So you have the priorities, but you have some inbuilt flexibility. But check it out. And I want to advise this. If the program can be done in the Caribbean, do it in the Caribbean. Don't go and want to do it overseas, because you're not going to get the student loan to do it, because it's more expensive overseas. I want to say also to students who are going to the medical schools here, I want to say to them, though we have scholarships which we work out, for instance, with Trinity, which is the oldest of the 4 schools here, and the others, we're doing it to have some assistance. But UWI medicine for a Vincentian, doing medicine at UWI is cheaper than doing the medicine here to you. Never mind, do the math. I'm asking everybody to do the math, because the fees are pitched for persons who are coming from overseas. It is true that you're saving money by staying with your mommy here. But the point is this, that saving is not nearly as significant as what you have to pay in the additional fees, because the government pays your economic costs to go to medical school, whether it is the medical school in Jamaica or in Trinidad within the university system, close to $30,000 a year. But Frank, you don't get that paid by us to the medical school here, because the $30,000 you see ain't going to help you much. As a drop, there's only a portion of what has to go into the bucket. By the way, before I came to office, only medical students who went to Mona from St. Vincent were given that assistance. because the funding arrangements in Trinidad were different. The origin of that medical school is different. It's the government of Trinidad and Tobago which funds that, but within the auspices of the university. But I made sure that early o'clock, within weeks of coming to office, because I understood the different funding arrangements, I started to fund the students going to St. Augustine too. And you're more likely as a Vincent to have a family in Trinidad than to have a family in Jamaica. They could tell you the first lot, 5 of them, I joked with them, there were 5 women, they came with some of them came with their parents. Incidentally, 6 weeks before that, 8 weeks before that, I'm told, they came to Annim Eustace here, you know. He tell them no. No. They get their medical education because of a change in policy, you know, and many subsequently. I will talk things which I never talked about before, you know. There were 5 of them. I said, well, I'm also casting my bread upon the waters, because 1 or more of you will come back here and help take care of Comrade Ralph in his old age. And they all said yes. I said, I don't expect all of you to come back. I said, you all would find spouses elsewhere. And some of you may be lucky to bring them back, but sometime the man might want to stay in this country of this thing. I said, but we will get some the other way too. So we kind of balance it off now. Yes. And we have students on an ongoing basis going to the medical school in Trinidad. Same university, West Indies qualification. So I just want to highlight the matter. I have to find this year in the region of $5 million for new students and continuing ones under the student loan program.
That was Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonsalves speaking from Cabinet Room, where he held a news conference on June 2nd. Stay with us. We will be back in just a moment, where we will visit several projects in the North Windward area for an update. We will hear of plans for the upcoming symposium to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Botanical Gardens. And the IADC will bring us the latest update from Argyle. We'll be back in just a moment.
Protecting our marine environment, our forest, our wildlife for our children. Pollution of our rivers and beaches, deforestation and overfishing threaten to destroy our biodiversity. Protected areas are set aside by law to protect these fragile ecosystems, which provide us with water, food, electricity, and recreation. Tobago Keys Marine Park, Kings Hill Forest Reserve, and Milligan Key Wildlife Reserve are examples of our local protected areas. Be inspired and help preserve what is naturally ours. Let's value nature. Protected areas protect life. A message from the Environmental Management Department and the National Parks, Rivers and Beaches Authority.
Thank you for staying with us, and welcome back to the presentation from the Agency for Public Information. Now, in October 2010, Hurricane Thomas impacted St. Vincent and the Grenadines significantly, causing damage to residential housing stock, government buildings, the road network, and the agricultural and forestry sectors. In April of 2011, this country was again impacted by torrential rainfall associated with a slow-moving low-level trough system, mainly on the north central and north windward side of the country. In November of 2011, the government signed a loan agreement in the amount of 40.2 million EC dollars for the natural disaster management, rehabilitation, and reconstruction of the Hurricane Thomas North Windward projects. Yesterday, officials from the Ministry of Transport and Works visited some of the projects being undertaken under this program. The FPI's Kathy Rose has this story.
The loan agreement signed by the government with the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, in November of 2011 for the natural disaster management, rehabilitation and reconstruction Hurricane Thomas North Windward project suffered some delay due to procuring the consultants and the project team. However, all that has been resolved and works under this project are in full gear. Goss Mountain Road and London Jack Feeder Road, two areas rehabilitated under this project, were tendered in June and October 2014 respectively, with construction of the Goss Mountain Road commencing in October of 2014 and is practically completed. Yesterday, Ms. Marla Mulrain, coordinator for the Natural Disaster Management Project, headed a team which visited two sites to view progress.
All the projects that we are doing under the Natural Disaster Management Project were projects or areas that were damaged or had exacerbated damage because of the Hurricane Thomas and April 2011 floods, right? And this was one of the roads that was thus affected. So the Goss Mountain Road, we're at the end here, but it continues all the way back down to the Windward Highway, and we had done a shorter section connecting the access road going up into, further up into the mountains and farmlands. They're actually going to be stabilizing the surface. It started out on the entrance out at Mount William, and it's continuing to come in. It's coming into this point and also another access road a little further up. It's going around there.
The road was constructed at a cost of over $1 million. The London Jack Road project began last month and is estimated to run for a period of 9 months.
We had a washout of the soil that was supporting the road, and after that the road collapsed. So that's why you have this, chasm, I guess we could call it, between this portion and that portion. And there were some other areas a little higher where we have washouts, so we're also going to remedy those areas. Essentially, we're going to be backfilling and lining the face of the backfill with gabions, and we will be reinforcing the backfill also. Well, as I indicated earlier, this is the major section that we're dealing with, but there are other areas above. As you can see, the guys are doing some excavation up there. They're going to be putting a drain. We have to be putting some retaining walls also, because we had a similar problem, over there. So we have to be remedying that area as well as this area. And this, when we do the backfilling of this section, we will have to be backfilling in layers as well as putting the geograde reinforcement. So it is a little tedious, but that is what would result in the extended time for doing these works. Additionally, the procurement of the geocode reinforcement, it takes a while.
The contractor on the project is Hutchinson Construction Company Limited, headed by Mr. Richard Hutchinson.
Well, presently now we're doing excavation, which you would see there's a big hole in the middle of the road. After that excavation, we'll be continuing work along the road going up. So we have some excavation to do on the side of the road in order to do the new retaining walls. And then after that, we will start to do the backfilling, the baskets, the road finishes, and that sort of thing.
Given no unforeseen circumstances, the project would be on schedule.
After the excavation is actual construction itself. So in the next 2 weeks or so, we should finish all the excavation. And then we should proceed to do the built-up, which is the retaining walls, the backfill, the gabion walls, and coming all the way up to road level. It is a lot of material and a lot of work to be done, but, providing we get good weather, we should be able to do it on time.
Other projects to be done in the near future under the Disaster Management Project are the Byra Bridge, Jennings Valley Road, Perseverance Road and O'Brien's Valley Bridge, Lauders Lomans Road, Camden Park Community Center, the Mespo Community Center, and Sandy Bay Coastal Defenses.
Thank you very much, Kathy, for that report. Continuing with the presentation from the API, the Botanical Gardens is the oldest of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. It sits on 20 acres of land and is home to a wealth of tropical plants, flowers, trees, and birds, and of course, the famous Captain Bligh breadfruit plant. The garden was created in 1765 by General Robert Melville as a plant breeding center to provide medicinal plants for the military and to improve the life and economy of the colony. On February 6, 2012, preparation for the restoration of the site was unveiled as part of the celebration of its 250th anniversary in 2015. The API met with curator of the Botanical Gardens, Mr. Gordon Shallow, who gave information about an upcoming scientific symposium highlighting the contribution of the Botanical Gardens to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The St. Vincent and the Grenadines Botanical Gardens is one of the pivotal factors that helped develop St. Vincent and the Grenadines over the last 250 years. During our colonial years and even post-colonial as well too. Just to put in a bit more relevance is that the gardens would have been fundamentally responsible as one of the major institutions that helped to feed St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have, as the public would more notably recognize, the story of the breadfruit and how it came to St. Vincent. And not just that it came, but successfully embedded itself into our culture. We have, as a part of our national dish, we have the breadfruit and the jackfish. That is a remarkable story in and of itself. We also have many of the fruit tree crops that most persons may figure to be indigenous or endemic or naturalized to St. Vincent, whereas they were brought in at one point in time as exotic fruits. Also in the area of continuing horticulture, in terms of a lot of ornamental plants that we see all throughout our development as a people, a lot of plants would have been brought in to the botanical gardens from foreign soils, from foreign lands, and were propagated here and then disseminated and made available for purchase. To elaborate a little more in terms of, as I said, that the botanical gardens fed St. Vincent, if you look at Kingston and all around Kingston, and when I say that I mean the larger periphery of Kingston, including Dorsetshire Hill, Sharps, and all of these mountainous areas in and around Kingston, a lot of them are covered with fruit tree crops, and a lot of these fruit tree crops came from the botanical gardens. Also, the botanical gardens at one point in time, in its very earlier stage, served as the quote-unquote the main propagation station for a lot of the estates in the early days, where we now know as urban Kingston was once a part of its history, was once estates. And these estates needed planting material. And that is why the gardens, that's partly why the gardens is in this location that it's in today. The very auspicious nature of the gardens in today's world is that it is the single largest green space in Kingston. True. And lending to the fact, as you noted, that around it, encroached around it is a lot of residential area and commercial activity as well, is that because it's the single largest green space, it actually has a very unique microclimate. Persons, if they would have noticed before or even now as we mention it, would come to the gardens and realize that it's a lot cooler here than in Kingston. On average, we would record about a 5-degree difference as compared to urban Kingston. So that says a lot. Also, it acts as a haven for a lot of migratory birds that make their way from the north, that comes down here during the colder season, that travels between St. Vincent and Grenada and so forth. A lot of them you would find flying overhead and taking up temporary residence in the gardens as they overwinter. There's even besides the birds, the migratory birds, there's also a lot of wildlife, because this area, Kisha, is a wildlife reserve area. It falls under the Wildlife Protection Act as well, and that means that there is no hunting whatsoever inside of these grounds. And a lot of animals see the gardens as a haven. You have the iguana that you will meet from time to time, roaming around very carelessly, at their leisure.
Very comfortable.
Very comfortable, just moving from tree to tree. Oftentimes we meet them walking through the nurseries. Snakes. I know some persons will not be happy to hear that, but there are snakes in the gardens, and as we know it in St. Vincent, we have currently non-venomous snakes in St. Vincent, and we wish to keep it that way. And you will be able to see the white snake from time to time, but more commonly what you will see in the garden is the Congo snake. And we saw one just up to last week, actually. And it was a very nice sight. We also had at one very short stint the black snake, which is an endemic species to St. Vincent. We had it in the gardens here for a little while. And speaking about endemic species, you also have the national bird, the St. Vincent parrot, housed here. Agoutis, from time to time, you will see them roaming in pairs or sometimes triples, walking about in the gardens. In commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the St. Vincent Grenadines Botanical Gardens, one of the events that we have, as you mentioned, is a scientific symposium, which would be on the 1st and 2nd of July. On the 1st, we are having the symposium, which we have speakers coming from the USA, speakers coming in from Dominica, and also local speakers as well too. From the USA, we have Dr. Nairi Zariga. She's a scientist working at the Chicago Botanical Garden, who is doing some work on behalf of the St. Vincent Botanical Gardens as it relates to the taxonomic classification of the blight breadfruit. That is the one that we often think about when we come to the gardens, when we think about breadfruit and so forth, and doing some DNA research for us on that, and looking at what other specialities that it may have, what other special characteristics that it may have as well too. The reason for that ties in with the broader scope that the international community is looking at the breadfruit as the way forward to feed not just Africa but the globe in this particular century. It's a fruit that is basically underutilized, and not much research has gone into. So Dr. Zariga has been dedicating her life's work into the breadfruit, or the Moraceae family, which the breadfruit falls part of, and also researching breadnut and other similar species of Altocarpus. So that is Dr. Zariga from the Chicago Botanical Gardens. We also have Dr. Lennox Honeychurch, which is a renowned historian in the Caribbean, and he would be coming in to give us a bit of an insight as to how the St. Vincent Botanical Gardens and other botanical gardens in the region has really contributed to regional development, not just St. Vincent, because we also impacted and also helped spawn a lot of the other gardens as well too, because of the initiative of establishing our gardens here first. We also have on that symposium Dr. Adrian Fraser, a local historian, who will take things from a local cultural aspect and more in depth in terms of the impact that the gardens had on St. Vincent. So we're taking it from a Vincentian perspective as well too. We also have on that day, because it's a very long day, we also have a panel discussion at the end, which will be from 5 to 7 in the evening. And this one, the emphasis is to have persons of the workforce, because this is really Wednesday, and we know lots of persons who would like to be there will not be able to attend and may not get the chance to take the day off or so forth. So we're leaving a space for them where after work, if persons so wish that they can come, and we're leaving that 1 hour window between 4 and 5 that they can get themselves ready to get there just in time for that discussion. And it is not going to be a sort of a lecture type event. As I said, it's a discussion. There's going to be a wide panel there where persons can ask questions that, as it relates to the development of the gardens or whatever else that they would like to know about the gardens.
You're viewing the API. Let's take a break. We will be back with our final segment and updates from the International Airport Development Company. Stay with us.
250 years ago, the breadfruit tree came to SVG, brought by Captain Bligh. Initially, the breadfruit came as food for enslaved Africans. The breadfruit truly found roots in our island and became so loved that it formed part of our national dish of breadfruit and jackfish. In light of this, the National Parks, Rivers and Beaches Authority is spearheading a scientific symposium to highlight the breadfruit tree and the botanical gardens and their contribution to the development of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Scheduled for July 1st, 2015, the scientific symposium will have presentations from local, regional, and international speakers. The symposium will be held at the National Insurance Services Conference Room, beginning at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Also, at 5 p.m., there will be a special panel discussion being held at the NIS training room. Come out and be a part of history in the making.
Welcome back to the final segment of the presentation from the Agency for Public Information. Now, as the Argyle landscape continues to transform by the construction of the Argyle International Airport, the IADC continues to facilitate guided tours for groups and organizations who want a first-hand look of the progress of the project. The IADC's Communications Officer, Jennifer Richardson, facilitates one such tour on this week's IADC Update.
In 2008, when we started work, we started over here on the southern side. And we had most of the work over here. If you notice, Johnson Hill is over here. We had to take this down. We had Fort Hill and McConney Yami Hill. And we had to take those down as well. And we had the valleys to fill up. So a lot of work was over in this side. Now, if you look today, well, Fort Hill is gone. McConney Yami Hill we are still taking down, but if you look carefully on McConney Yami Hill, you will see where they have now clearly outlined. You see the line of demarcation up there? So you see the face of the rock getting smooth like here? Right. It means therefore that the things in front of that, that is what we have remaining to come down. Right? So we are close to where we want to be with this. And for over here, that would be what needs to come down over here. A lot of things going on in this side here. Yes, we are taking down the rocks. Yes, we are moving the soil and rocks over to the other side. The stone crushing plant is also over here in this side. Over here, if you see the dust flying there, that's the stone crusher. It works from 6 to 11 every day, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Over there, if you look further, you see that white concrete strip? That is one of two turning heads on the runway. The other one is on the northern end. Both turning heads are completed. Behind the turning head is what you call the stopway, and on both ends the stopways are also completed. So we have two courts, that must go on to the runway. for the asphalt. You have the base coat and the wearing coat. Right now, we're at the base coat phase. And that coat, that takes the weight of the aircraft. And when we are done, we're going to go over the whole thing and put on the wearing coat, which allows the aircraft to run smoothly across the runway. So we're doing quite a bit of work. From right in front, the turning head come right down right to, well, you could see as far as they reach, going down with the strip of asphalt. That's the base coat. The black stuff you're seeing to the ends out here, where the sticks are sticking up, you see them? We don't have asphalt on that as yet. That is just a protective coating that we have there. That black stuff is not asphalt. Closer to us here. Right? It looks like asphalt, but it's not. It's a protective coating that we put there to prevent the base material that we have under there from being contaminated. What we are doing here pretty much is like bridging the river, basically, so that the runway can pass over it. So what we would have done was to build the culverts on this side, because we couldn't do it in the water. So you have to build it on this side, and then you divert this portion of the river into here and let it continue on its normal course once it gets out down there. So these 5 culverts here, each one, the size of it is 10 by 20 feet. So they are tall and they are wide to allow maximum flow of water to pass through. It spans 1,000 feet down the road down there, right? Something will be done in front here to assist with keeping debris and stuff from going in. But what it is yet, I don't know what it is as yet. What method they're going to use, I am not sure about that. But right now what they're doing here, these culverts here, the material they're using is corrugated steel. And to extend the life of the corrugated steel, we have sprayed every single piece, inside and out, with a special anti-corrosive paint. If you see over there, that's where they do the spraying to extend the life. So we should get at the least about 50 years out of this before we have to even think about maintenance or anything like that. So they are built to last. A lot of things are happening. It's coming together. It looks like an awesome task, and it is, but we're up to the task.
And that's how we end this evening's presentation from the Agency for Public Information. Thank you very much for viewing. I trust that you found it to be quite informative and interesting. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. and Saturdays at 5 for the presentations from the Agency for Public Information. Until next time, I am Shanna Daniel. Good night and God bless.
Thank you.